No,
Season 5, Bleav in Carolina Panthers. We're all still here.
Hey, start that over.
Okay, hold on.
I'm good.
I can't start with loud. Welcome back, Bleav in Panthers. Season 5, premiere right here on Bleav Podcast Networks and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com. Loaded show today. We'll get into all of this. We know we've been gone for a couple of months, had to recharge, like I'm sure some of you other Panther fans had to do as well. We'll get into the Blueprint miniseries that's on YouTube, our thoughts from that. And our biggest storylines heading into training camp. Training camp players arriving. Well, not arriving. It's actually in Charlotte this year instead of Spartanburg. But I saw pictures of rookies like kind of settling in. I guess they didn't have like sleeping bags or whatever with them because they probably just walked to the facility from wherever they were. But we got all that and more coming up here on this season 5 premiere of Bleav in Carolina Panthers. Let's do it.
Jonathan Stewart gets hit, fights for more yardage. Stewart to the mouth of the goal line. Touchdown! Wow, that's just pure Stewart right there.
That's a big-time run by Jonathan Stewart.
Welcome to Bleav in Carolina Panthers here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Do you believe? Rate and subscribe the show on all major podcast platforms and subscribe to our social media channels on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Video available weekly at youtube.com/@Tobacco Road Sports Radio.
Do you believe?
So if you normally catch us on Twitter, I'm just now seeing that Twitter, Elon Musk, he's done changed something where I have to have a premium account in order to stream this to Twitter. So if you're looking for this on Twitter, it's not currently there. Yeah, I'll figure this out over the course of the show. Desmond Johnson here with you, along with Sports Illustrated Panthers beat writer Schuyler Callihan and the Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart here for the season 5 premiere of Bleav in Carolina Panthers on Bleav Podcast Networks. You can catch us across a variety of different platforms, Facebook. I'm about to set up the Instagram here in just a second so you can share it that way, and I'll figure this Twitter thing out. Guys, we've been on break for a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty of everything. What's up? I know Schuyler's been super busy. There really is no offseason for Schuyler being a beat writer for the Panthers, the Hornets, West Virginia University. So starting off with you, man. You left us with a huge announcement last time we were on that you and your wife were expecting. How's everything going with the Schuyler Callihan clan?
Yeah, it's going so far. We got another couple of months. She's due November 10th, so we got a few more months till she arrives, but we're excited and trying to catch up on sleep as best as I can, which doesn't really work for me anyways because I'm trying to get up at 4 in the morning, get a head start on work, and yeah. I'm kind of burned out already. So.
Yeah, well, at least you'll be used to the 4 o'clock.
Yeah, that's true.
For feedings and stuff.
Maybe that's what I'm doing. I'm preparing.
You're preseason. You got your preseason going on. And then, of course, we've got Jonathan Stewart in the house. Stu, I know you took some time to relax yourself. I saw a lot of you playing golf on Instagram, I think, the past couple of months. How's that golf swing going?
Man, golf is life. You know?
Could you beat Adam Thielen?
In golf?
No, I cannot beat Adam Thielen.
Oh, is he like that?
Yeah, he's like that. He played in the what's that tournament? The ACC.
Oh,
gosh, just tip my tongue now. I just had him.
Yeah,
he played in the golf tournament down there in Lake Tahoe.
He did well.
He did really well, and he is a ball striker, straight up. But yeah, man, I've been playing a lot of golf. Been enjoying my time on the course with my family. Took some trips. Went to a wedding. Christian McCaffrey, that is.
Oh yeah.
He got married and it was a really nice time. And yeah, man, went up to Maine with the fam. Hung out with good old George W. And just been kicking it. I'm coaching middle school football.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot happening right now.
Yeah. Middle school's in depth too. Like they've got some little kids doing complicated schemes and stuff too.
Yeah. We working on the deep thirds right now, drop backs.
That's great.
When I was in middle school, it was literally power, stretch, and quarterback slant. Like that was all you had.
See, I haven't played since I was in 3rd grade, so it was like Pop Warner football, where it's like this hole is 1, this hole is 2,
Yeah,
this hole is 3.
Well,
yeah,
and mind you, too, where I'm from, obviously in West Virginia, we're not blessed with the most skilled athletes. So it's just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. We didn't really have the athletes to throw it either. So maybe that's part of it.
Oh no. So we are now live on the Bleav in Panthers Instagram page, so you guys can share the video from there while I still try to get this Twitter thing figured out. Why are they going to make it where you can't stream unless you have a premium account on Twitter?
It's time to make that money. That's what
I'm
they're
gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad,
They're
son.
going to do that in the middle, like while we're gone. Like that really, I don't like that.
I'm gonna lie to you. If it was me, I'd do the same thing, charging everybody. Y'all want to have Twitter fingers or X fingers now? Yeah, y'all gonna have to pay for that.
We're going to start charging for people to watch the show.
Yeah, really. That's the next step. Apparently, like we'll have to put this thing behind a paywall or something.
Nickel for every viewer.
Going back to this coaching thing that I'm a part of now. The coaching staff goes like this: head coach Greg Olson, defensive coach,
What?
defensive coach Luke Kuechly, offensive coach Greg Olson's dad, and yeah, we're just loaded right now.
What you're telling me is you're going to run through the schedule like crazy.
What school is this? Because I might just
great
roll up.
coaching, and we got some really good studs. We got a stud named Sawyer. I won't disclose his last name, but he's a stud, man. It's his first year playing football,
That's
and he's
great.
built like someone's dad.
What does the other team do? Like when you guys roll up on the field, and they look across the field, and they see you, Luke Kuechly, Greg Olson.
That's part of coaching. If they over there start that's bad coaching on the other team.
Meanwhile, the kids are like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? Why are y'all so upset all of a sudden? What's going on?" I'm gonna have to keep track of that. And then shout out to
that's for all the Panthers fans that want that dream team of former players coaching. Well, they have it. It's just a middle.
Exactly.
Middle school ball. Come watch us.
Ooh. Shout out to Thomas Davis's son. I guess Thomas Davis Jr. The last high school football game I broadcasted was Weddington versus Grimsley in the Western 4A semifinals, and it was a dogfight. And I got a chance to finally see his kid up close and personal. He put a lick on somebody late in that game, and I think he was a sophomore, so I think he's a junior now, if I'm not mistaken. And Weddington's probably going to open up #1 in the state in 4A. I think they brought back everybody, and people are saying their front 7 might be the best in all the state. And
you got cats going there. Like it's just like a continuous like flood of kids that realize where recruiters and scout, just where they're all paying their flight miles to.
It's a nice
I'm gonna go see Weddington.
Yeah, it's a nice campus. Like, I don't know if you've ever been there, but like the football field's in the back. You have to go across a creek, so there's like a little troll bridge that they have that you walk across and walk up into the thing, and it's nice. It was really, really nice. I wasn't expecting that. So, having said that, I'm hoping my guys will see them somewhere along the way. But we'll see. So all that's about to start happening here in August. Let's get into where y'all go first. Y'all want to get this anger out first before we get into Panther stuff? Because
might as well.
All right, because some of this stuff is fresh.
I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I don't know if Stu said he had one. I think Schuyler was trying to decide between two. I have one very specific one. And it has nothing to do with football, but people are gonna be able to agree with me on it, I think. Schuyler, you wanna go with yours, or?
Yeah, I guess I'll get mine out of the way because, like I said, mine's very childish and in some ways very selfish.
I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I've been waiting over a decade for this college football game to come out.
Oh, no.
And I'm a season into my dynasty, right? Yes, I've been grinding that much. And
you've been
it just came out.
Technically, I'm 2 seasons in now, but hear me out.
Jeez.
After the first year, I've had some players like my star players, like my quarterback, my star receiver, their numbers are all changing. And I'm like, what the heck's this? Like, you can't go and edit their numbers. And when you bring in new recruits, if they want a certain number, it doesn't matter if your starting quarterback's been rocking that number, he's going to get that number. So you can't change it. And to me, it just really messes it up for me because like the visuals, and then you think about like having to learn certain players. Like when I'm trying to go through and pick the player I'm on defense, I want to know who 94 is, who 10 is, who whatever. I have to relearn it all. But the main thing that really ticks me off about it is my quarterback just switched from number 8 to number 87, and my star wide receiver is gone from 4 to 91, and my left tackle is now number 1, and I can't change it.
Yeah, that doesn't sound good
This
at
has
all.
never been an issue with previous football games. Everyone's talking about it on Twitter, but yeah, that's why I'm mad. Again, pretty childish, but.
Yeah, a little bit, but I understand. Because to be honest, most people playing that game are not children. From what I understand, it seems like it's grown adults like playing that game.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Actually, everything I've heard, like the detail in that game, all the way down to like they do like the Wake Forest chant, like when Wake gets a first down, it's like first down Wake, and then the crowd goes Forest. Like they got that in there. Like they had Wake Forest new uniforms before they even unveiled them to the public.
They did a really good job with all the detail. Like I don't have much to complain about with it other than that, but you see all these updates that they're trying to add to it. There's some school logos that I haven't noticed but have messed up, or they've got some audio wrong. I just think they crammed so much into this game at launch, and maybe they needed to even push this back another year, or maybe just add some of this stuff over the next few years instead of trying to get it all into this one game.
Yeah. But the demand's definitely there. That's all I've been hearing about from people was that game. Mine actually has nothing to do with football, but the country should be able to unite around this.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son. I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
I'm trying to figure out how I want to go with this.
Oh boy.
Why do people think that this year's U.S. men's Olympic basketball team could run with the 92 Dream Team? Because that's the sentiment I keep getting from people that, oh, this team is one of the greatest ever assembled. They would be able to play with the Dream. They beat the Dream Team. And I'm like, this team almost lost to South Sudan like a couple days ago. Like it took a LeBron James layup with 11 seconds to go. They were down the entire game to South Sudan. South Sudan has JT Thor, who Schuyler's very familiar with. He was in and out of the Charlotte Hornets 15-man rotation and couldn't stay in it. And the Sudan kid that's going to Duke, that's in their top class or whatever. I think the 7-foot kid, I think he's on that team. That's it. That's it. And this team with LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, who we were high on at the end of season 4 of this last year. They got all these players. And it's like they don't play defense at all. Like they just, all of them are standing outside the 3-point line. They're all looking at LeBron pretty much. LeBron is 39 years old. He's playing 40 minutes a game, an exhibition game.
Out there killing these young boys, though.
Yeah, they're killing them. He's 39. I'm like, they haven't even started the real games yet. And the real games start this upcoming weekend, I believe. But and by no means is it guaranteed that they're going to win the gold medal. Like, in fact, I'm kind of expecting them not to, because they kind of remind me of the 04 team, where they had LeBron and I think D Wade and Carmelo were on it, but they were like 1 year into their careers, so they didn't really play. Larry Brown was the coach, had like Allen Iverson on it and Tim Duncan, and they won the bronze. And that was when people were like, oh, okay, we need to get back to getting all this stuff together. And that led to the 08 Redeem team and Kobe and all that. Kobe played defense. Kobe actually led that team defensively, and they played. Who's doing that for this team? Because I think there's a single player on this team.
There's still time. There's still time for them to figure that out, right? If you look back, though, like Kobe was the one that had to ignite everybody. Like, hey, we dragging our feet here. Y'all better step up. And they had some games where they was playing poo-poo, like they was playing against South Sudan, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I will say this: the game is growing, right? Just like golf. Yeah. But basketball isn't necessarily like, you have talent that's growing internationally. Now, America will always continue to be superior, but when you talk about other, countries coming together for the Olympics and playing for their country, and what effort you get out of those guys in team ball, I mean, I'm pretty sure that they're playing relatively better team ball than the USA is right now, right?
Yeah, they look like
when you watch these games, they play like college football. They play like college basketball. Mm-hmm. They just shoot more, right? They actually don't wait till the last minute to shoot. Like, you see a shot, they take it. But that's really kind of how I see the international, game and the struggles for the USA. You're not seeing all these blowouts because teams are doing a good job of actually playing the game, passing the ball around, taking some time up off the clock, and all those types of things, and making it to where the USA has to not make many mistakes. Because if one guy, you have a lot of those guys that can take over a game, right, on their own squad, throughout a regular season. So now you have these guys like, man, I don't want to be that guy.
That is kind of what's going on. Yeah.
So they're basically like, hey, LeBron, this is your show. Like, you're the oldest one.
But that's the problem. He's the oldest one. Like, he's 39. He's played in like 4 Olympics. And
I'm gonna tell you why we mad.
What happens when LeBron inevitably has a bad game and can't bail them out the last second?
Hopefully someone realizes that he's having a bad game and they step up, right?
Where is Steph Curry? Like,
I feel like a lot of it is like the desire to win. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be questioning, but I just feel like it's not, the passion isn't as there maybe as it once was like 30, 40 years ago, or even 20 years ago for the USA, because they've dominated this thing for so long and the game's changed now. We talk about load management in the NBA all the time. These guys aren't going to go out there and play 100% effort in this thing. I mean, they may go 80% and still win gold. But when you go back to the Dream Team, I mean, those dudes were playing like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
And
so
they were the core of it was in their prime. Like, people forget, in 92, Jordan, Pippen, they were just coming off back-to-back titles. Barkley won MVP the next year in 93. Malone won MVP 5 years later. Stockton was in his prime. David Robinson just won a scoring title while Jordan was retired and scored 70 points in a game. Like, half the team was in their prime. Half of this team is in their mid-30s. Like, LeBron ain't the only old person on the team. Steph is 35. KD's 35. Embiid's over 30. Like, the young kids like Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, they're not playing as much as I think they should. And it's going to take a surprise. Like, somebody's going to sneak up on them here in the Olympics, and I think they're going to get beat by somebody. I don't want them to get beat, but just watching them play, they're not going to magically play defense. They don't play it for their paying jobs. So like, I don't see them doing it in the Olympics. So that's just today. They barely got by Germany, and LeBron had to go on his back again the last like couple of minutes to pull them out. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. So,
I mean, it's kind of like 2004, right?
That's what I was saying. Yeah, they remind me of them. They're dependent on the names on the back of the jersey, and they're hoping that the teams they see are going to be scared of the USA on the front. But a lot of these teams now, like to y'all's point, have NBA players on them. So it's like they're not scared to play LeBron or Steph. They play them anyway. So it's like now, having said that, the world has gotten better. But we're supposed to be better too. Like that was the other thing. Because people always tell me that
I'm gonna tell you why we mad, son.
Today's athletes in the NBA are better than the ones in the 90s. You know what I mean? That's the argument I get sucked into. And I'm like, well, if they were better, they'd be able to play defense. Because these guys ain't playing defense at all.
I can argue that, because the athletes nowadays compared to the 90s, oh, absolutely. That's way different. You got to be out of your mind to think differently.
Well, then it's mentally.
It's exact. That's what it is. It's
the mental part.
Too. It's the mental aspect of defense. It's the mental aspect of like I want to play defense. It's just like football, right? When we talk about football and a running back taking on a block, Coach Skip used to tell us all the time, running backs coach, you don't have to block him with all the technique. I want you to just hit him in the mouth. You got to want to hit somebody in the mouth. You got to want to block somebody. You got to be a crazy mofo to be putting your hands on
your body into somebody. Yeah.
So, because you're not doing it often, right? So you got to have that mentality of, I don't care how I protect the quarterback. I'm just going to put my body out there and basically say, my will is to put you on the ground. And you have to have that mindset when you play defense. If you're not a defensive player, you have to channel it just like Kobe does, man. Kobe was one of the greatest because he legitimately, I saw this clipping today of guys talking about Kobe and him being on the course hissing, right? Like a snake. I'm like, whoa, so this man really thought he was a snake while he was playing. Like he turned it on. And a lot of guys don't have that mentality where they can just turn into this alter ego and really and truly manage that within a game. And so that's an art in itself, and I think it's a lost art.
That's actually a good segue into actual Panther stuff because Blueprint, we didn't get a chance to talk about Blueprint before we went to break. And one of the things they were referring to in that, especially the second episode, was how they decided to build from the inside out with the offensive defensive lines, with the signings that they did there. But I wanted to actually go more into on episode 2. I rewatched it the other night because I knew we were coming in to do this, and how they kind of framed Dan Morgan as like the brain of all this. Like he's the central figure. Everything kind of runs through him at this point now, and not a contingent of people. It's not Scott Fitter plus Dan Morgan plus this guy and that guy and this offensive coach and that guy. It's him. Like everything runs through him. And I'm just excited to kind of see how they react to this, because there's a certain, I don't know, like a spark or something that's in the air right now that I did not feel this time last year in the offseason, although we were very happy about the coaching change. And I think looking back on it, we were more happy Matt Rule was gone than we were who they brought in and everything else. And we convinced ourselves that it was going to work. We found out really after preseason game 2, maybe, that it probably wasn't going to work. And we just held on for the ride. Thoughts going into this year, Schuyler, you first, in terms of, you said you watched the Blueprint episodes and you've been in and out of the building. So you've been talking to these guys. And then we'll get Stu's opinion on Dan Morgan himself, and him knowing him and actually working with him off and on here for the Panthers. Your thoughts on Dan Morgan and what he's done since we've been off the air, between free agency, the draft, which we were still on for that we talked about, moves they've done since then, and just the overall vision. They feel like things are more, I don't want to steal it from Panthers playbook, my guys Chris Lee and Dennis Cox, but they've been going on about them being aligned, and that's kind of the right word. It feels like they're more aligned this year than they've been in the past. What have been your thoughts from being inside the building?
Well, I mean, that's exactly what everyone ridiculed the previous regime for, right? They weren't aligned. It was Scott Fitterer said this, and David Tepper had this thought on it. Nicole Tepper had this thought on it. Matt Rule had this thought. Frank Reich, I want this quarterback. The OC wants this quarterback. I want to run this offense, this offense. Nobody was on the same page. So when you try to bring 15 different ideas together all down to one, it's going to look like what you saw last year. And I kind of hinted at it really early on, maybe like week 2 or 3 last year when I talked about it on here, how you have Frank Reich and his passing offense that he comes from. Then you bring in Thomas Brown, who's from the Sean McVay tree. Those are 2 totally different things. Those things clash head to head. They do not mesh well together at all. Yeah. And we saw that. And even after Frank was fired, it still just didn't look like a good product, because they'd been taught for several months, this is how we're going to do things. And they try to pivot and it just didn't work. But as far as Dan goes, I think he's done a phenomenal job in terms of doing the most of what he can with the resources that he has. He didn't have a ton of cap space. He didn't have a first-round pick until he traded into the round. And I think he did a really good job with that Brian Burns trade. You get that pick back next year, that second-round pick. They eventually made some other moves and got that second-round pick back for next year. They were able to get Brian Burns off the books, which – as good of a talent as he is, I don't know that you want to pay a pass rusher $30 million when you're starting to really try to get this thing moving again. So it makes sense. But with Dan, I think the difference between what we're going to see in the future with him versus what we saw with Scott is, look, you have a guy that not only played the game in the NFL, but played it at a very high level and played it here where he's managing the roster. He understands what it's going to have to take for this team to be competitive, to be in the mix for the NFC South titles and so on and so forth. I don't know if Scott really knew that. He comes from Seattle, all those years with John Schneider. He's a baseball/football guy. He's a smart guy, but I think he was playing too much of the upstairs thing, trying to figure out how to be cute with analytics and stuff like this. Dan Morgan uses his eye and says, yep, that's the guy for us.
Yep.
If he plays hard, plays fast, plays physical, that's our type of guy. And I think that's what's going to really bring out the new DNA in this team, is we're really going to see it look like what Dan Morgan was when he played here.
That was the vibe I caught from Blueprint, that he's really – the difference between Scott Fitter and Dan Morgan is that Scott Fitter didn't have a –
Here it is. Scott didn't have a type.
He didn't have a type. Exactly.
Dan had a type.
Dan knows exactly the type of guy he wants, and he echoed it throughout the episode that dogs. You know, he wants a dog. He's mentioned Stu. He's mentioned Steve Smith. He's mentioned other guys that have played for the Panthers in the past where he's like, we need a guy like this. We need a guy like that. And he uses Stu or Smitty or whoever as an example, not just as a player, but as a leader, and like the mentality coming in and day out, so that the younger players are seeing this and they're following. And I thought they did that in the draft. I thought they did that really well in terms of finding guys, especially after round 2, that could be diamonds in the rough. Stu, what are you seeing from being out of the building in terms of Dan Morgan's had now? When did Dan get hired? Back in January? February? It's been a minute.
Yeah, it was around that time.
Before the Super Bowl? I think it was before the Super Bowl, wasn't it? So he's been in now about half a year, 6 months. The team has had a drastic makeover in terms of the roster, in terms of turnover. We'll get to our big three, our 3 biggest storylines going into training camp here this week here in just a second. But your thoughts on what Dan Morgan's done, just taking control of this team, because it feels like David Tepper and Nicole Tepper have been like, okay, we've tried it this way, we've tried it that way, let's try it this way, and we're going to step out the way, and we've got an actual former Panther in the middle of it doing it that knows how we want it done. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, man, like it's basically like this. You can take a star player, right, and put him on a team. But if you expect him to change the team because he's a star player, and you expect him to have, elite numbers just because he's placed on a team, it doesn't mean anything, right? And I think Dan Morgan realizes that. I mean, you see it with the Brian Burns trade, right? And unfortunately, the culture for the Panthers wasn't right for Brian Burns to shine himself. If you think about it, you look at guys like Christian McCaffrey, like he's in San Francisco now. I mean, you can name a lot of guys on this roster that you think to yourself, man, it would have been nice to keep that guy. But you can have these types of guys, but if you don't have the right culture, if you don't have, what your type, like what you were saying, you can't really get anywhere. And what I've seen Dan do this offseason, starting with Dave Canellas, getting a guy in here that can relay the message, right, and relay this environment for guys to learn, and not just the players, but the coaching staff. How do we want the coaches to coach? How do we want them to manage players? How do we go about this, right? How are we going to practice? And being a player's coach, being a player's GM, even, right? So he understands what it means for a rest day. He understands what it means for a guy that's coming in 7 years in the league and he's got, a little bit of tread left on his tires. He knows what type of rest he's going to need. He's going to be able to communicate well with the training staff and all those types of things, and have an understanding for who he needs to have in the pockets of depth, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about the pockets of depth. We talk about the guy that needs development. You talk about the guy that, he can come in and start for us if something goes down. Like, he sees this, from a whole different vantage point, I think, than what we've seen lately, just simply because of his experience playing football, and having injuries himself, and having to grit through things and have to grind through pain and suffering, and the mindset of, an elite warrior at the end of the day. That's what he was on the football field. And then coming from Miami, like, that's just a different type of breed, right? Especially from the time that he played there, right? Mm-hmm. It's a different breed of dogs right there. And so you have this you're creating a common understanding within the front office, the scouting department, which is basically self-awareness and awareness of others and building trust, right? Hey, this is what it is. And if it's not this, don't talk about it, right? If we want the color blue and it's not blue, let's not talk about it. Let's not waste our time, right? Put it in this file cabinet. And if things change, we'll go back to that file. And then from the coaching standpoint, getting a guy like Dave Canellas and coming in here, this is a guy that, again, common understanding, right? Clarity and empathy, like understanding, how players tick, understanding how they learn, understanding their strengths and their weakness, how far they are from making that weakness a strength, and what does it take to make that weakness a strength for the team. Not just looking at a weakness as, oh, we can't do anything about it. No, there's always something you can do about it. I mean, you look at how, what he's doing with Bryce, right? Last year, leading the league in sacks, right? How do we fix that? Yeah, we got to get some strong offensive linemen up front.
Boys. Yeah.
Big boys, right? But not just big boys. We need big boys that are aggressive. Need guys that are just going to do their job, right? And how do you complement that? How do you compliment a guy to say, hey, just do your job and I promise you we'll be happy? You make it easier for that guy to do his job. And how do you make it easier for an offensive lineman to block? Hey, quarterback, let's get the ball out quicker.
Yes.
Let's get the ball out quicker so that
seconds.
way we can have confident offensive linemen up front and they know what they're doing. They're not questioning themselves, right? Because every now and then you're going to need to bail your offensive lineman out. Every now and then you're going to need to bail your quarterback out, and vice versa for every single position on that football field, offense and defense. And that comes from a brain of a guy that's played the game. You know what I'm saying? Dan Morgan understands, hey, we need guys that are just going to come here and do their job and do their job well. And that can buy in. And when you buy into something, it means you're offering someone something that they are interested in. If I tell you, hey, you're a great singer, right? And I want you to perform in front of this large crowd. I'm going to give you a mic to do it even. Now you're thinking to yourself, oh, so I don't got to yell and scream and crack my voice so that way people can hear me? like, yeah, I'll take that up, and we'll even give you this sweet sound system to where you sound like, what's that phrase? Fergie and Jesus. So it's like a give and take almost, right? So you offer someone something that is, essential to how they perform better. That's how you buy in. You don't just say, hey, you're here to do the impossible. Okay, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. All right, great.
But I'll try.
Let's start. But it's crazy too, because you talk about the buy-in, and that's the compare contrast to last year. And thinking back on it, I don't know if they ever the players. I don't know if they ever fully bought into the coaching staff, and I kind of understand why, because of all the stuff we ended up hearing after the fact in terms of them not being on the same page. And I don't know exactly what offense we were running.
We were doing the show week 16, 17, 18 last year, still trying to figure out what the hell their identity was on both sides of the ball. I mean, even though the defense played well, there were still some things where you kind of didn't really know what they were trying to do. I think for the most part, we're talking about offense here, but it just, from the day that Dave Canales and Dan Morgan were introduced, you knew what the identity was of this team was going to be. It was to be physical up front, run the damn football, play defense. Simple as that. Last year, it was like we're all over the damn place.
That's Panther football. It's been Panther football for 27 years. And whenever people whenever people try to come in and change that identity, it never works. It never works.
I was talking with Willie P on WFNZ last week, and he actually brought this up too. And I almost wonder, or he almost wonders too, but with Dan Morgan kind of coming in and changing this and making it this kind of new vision, this new identity, is he almost trying to take what they did in that little short stint with Steve Wilkes and maximize that, because I mean, it sucks that Steve's not here to run the show, because obviously he deserved that opportunity. We could have that conversation for another day, but that team was dangerous, and they didn't really have that much to work with. They just had an identity.
I don't think that was really Steve Wilkes' identity. I think Steve Wilkes just understood the Panthers' identity and was like putting it on the roster that he was inheriting. I don't think that was a Steve Wilkes type of defense. I think that was just what Steve Wilkes was taught as defensive coordinator here.
It's like seasoning chicken, bro. Right?
Here it is.
But
go on.
This is like, so you go into your seasoning drawer, right? You got to figure out what you have, so that way you can season your chicken. You just don't be putting anything on your chicken, though, right?
There's 4 essentials you got to put on there.
You got to put some. Yes, like you got your Lowry's, okay. You got your garlic, salt, okay. You got your lemon pepper, okay. And then you got some paprika, okay. And then you got salt and pepper.
Hold on. You use Lowry's to start off. You gonna finish with some salt too?
Nah, bro. I'm just saying the essentials in your within your drawer. You won't put it all in there, right?
You about to cook, but
like if you thinking to yourself like, oh, I'm gonna throw some ginger in there. Like, wait, hold on.
What you doing?
Like, what you doing? I'm gonna throw some mustard in there. Hey, I'm gonna throw some cinnamon in there because that's what I have.
Relax.
Like, no, we don't want to do that. We just want to make the chicken do what it do with the things that we got, and we want to be able to serve it to people to where they say, man, that's some pretty good chicken.
See, this is what you guys have missed while we've been off. You get Panther content, but you also get things like how to cook chicken and things of that sort. You can only get it here, Bleav.
Do you believe?
So that this is where you come for all that action. I've been thinking about Dan Morgan in terms of how he's been doing this. Dude's almost like a machine, like the way he kind of formulates stuff in his head and then goes after stuff. And looking at stuff now, people were complaining that we didn't get a first for Brian Burns. That ship had sailed. Like, to be honest, looking back on it, we're lucky to have got what we got. And now, are y'all watching the Hard Knocks on the Giants?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because I'm watching it, and there's a lot more cringe moments, like seeing them talk about players at this part of the
whole
year.
Saquon Barkley thing. Oh,
yeah.
Man. I'm just like, man, look, y'all shouldn't have recorded that.
With Saquon, that the minute he said those words of "we're going to let you test the market," like you're not interested in bringing the guy back.
You let him do what?
And you could hear it in Saquon's voice too. He's like, I told y'all that what it is, but he didn't commit or nothing after that point. He was like,
"Nah, I'm out.
And then he to go to the Eagles of all places too.
Yeah.
And to hear John Mara, where he was just like, I'm not gonna be able to go sleep if he goes to Philadelphia or whatever. And
you should have signed him then. I don't want to hear none of that. Listen, I don't want to hear none of that. I don't care. No one feels bad for you. You should have done right by Saquon. And he lost a chance. And I hope that Saquon does what he needs to do next year when they go up there. Or do they play them next year?
Cool. Oh, Philly?
Oh, yeah. But
absolutely. They're in their division. Jesus Christ. Twice.
It's a minimum, yeah.
I can't wait to see what he gets to do to these boys.
I mean,
man, you know who's really in trouble? Them Cowboys.
We want to talk about it? Because I think so. They ain't done nothing. They signed the kicker.
Cowboys is in trouble, fellas.
They signed Zeke back after they let him go because they thought he was done. Then they brought him back a year later. So this is a year older Zeke. I don't know what
as a fellow running back.
As a fellow
running back, I hope everything goes well for Zeke.
Yeah,
that would be nice. We just got to make sure that offensive line is sturdy.
Who gets the?
I don't mean to be the making fun of the Giants podcast here, especially because Carolina has their own quarterback issues. But this is the same organization that decided to not only take Daniel Jones as the top 10 pick, but pay him north of $40 million per year.
That was the thing too in that episode. The last one came out last week where they were like, "Look, if there's a quarterback sitting there, we might take him. If not, roll with Daniel Jones and get him some weapons." I'm like, how does Daniel Jones feel after hearing this? Like, oh, okay, great.
They clearly are just like, we're just kind of try and wait until we can get a new guy.
Yeah, we're stuck with Daniel Jones is the way it sounds watching this show. And I know Daniel Jones is watching it and like, I mean, if
I heard that, I'd be like, man, screw you.
Yeah, I'm like, why do I want to play here? Let's Saquon Barkley the same thing. He's like, why do I want to play here? I'm gonna go to the division rival to make it hurt even more because he probably could have went someplace else. but he
You
knew.
think, you
going
think
to
some of these
Stewart.
players should take a page out of Jalen Brunson's playbook?
Take
a
less?
pay cut? Take a pay cut?
There's so much money in the NBA though. Like, is he really gonna miss it? Like he's gonna get another deal like in 4 years.
I can tell you the answer to that, but
Some teams
the answer
will.
is no.
Yeah,
The answer is
like,
no.
no.
If you
like,
offering me something, listen, I know I know what I'm worth. Like, pay me that.
Exactly.
I think you'll see some guys do it. Depend like where they're at in their career. Like if they're
Yeah, like if you
33,
Tom
34,
Brady or something like that, like
I don't think Tom Brady. Well, he did a little bit.
If you're a star receiver, like if you're Devontae Adams, whenever his deal's up, I mean, like, I think you would want to go play with Patrick Mahomes for a year. Or Trevor Lawrence, maybe. Trevor Lawrence.
I've been hearing the Jets. He's trying to get back with A-Rod or whatever.
That'd be nice.
There's so many stories going into this season. I know we said we're going to do the top 3 for the Panthers. Next time we'll do the top stories for around NFL. But I'm curious to see what Aaron Rodgers looks like. We saw 3 plays from him last year, and the Jets are building like all this around him. What if he comes back and I don't think he'll be garbage, but what if he is? Like, what if he comes back and he's not good? Or
he's only going to be another year older, so
he's going to be a year older, coming off of a
Achilles?
Achilles.
I mean, granted, he was walking around without crutches after what, something stupid, 5 weeks or something nuts. He was out there throwing a football. We were like, what in the world? How did that happen? So maybe he is going to be okay. But
what about Brandon Ayuk?
Would you kick the tires on Brandon Ayuk for Carolina? Do we need him?
I would. It makes sense in a lot of ways, but here's the thinking behind it.
We are probably going to keep 6 receivers.
If you make that trade and for some reason Bryce just isn't the answer again and your team's down, you may be trading the number 1 overall pick again.
We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that again. No, I don't even want to be in that position. Like, I'm looking at it like if Bryce is letting the ball go 3 seconds or less, and he's being – this kind of what he was running at Alabama, wasn't it? Like, it was tight, concentrated, boom, get it out fast, let your skill players do the work, and you just be the maestro and dictate traffic. That's what won him a Heisman. So I'm like, let's play –
I mean, you got Deontay Johnson, you got Adam Thielen, you got Xavier Legette. Like, you've got pieces. And like Stu said, there's a couple other guys. I mean, you got Mingo, Terrace Marshall,
Mingo's
Smith Marset. Like, there's bodies there. They just got to step up.
I don't think they need to trade for Ayuk.
I don't think they do. But
you
I just
only
wonder
do
where
that
he's
if
going to go.
if you're on the cusp.
He's asking for a trade. He's asking for a trade.
I almost said KFC, Kansas City.
KFC, you hungry, boy?
Yeah, I think
all that chicken talk.
We normally do this in the morning. This is around dinner time now. Yep, Kansas City, maybe. I mean, Kansas City's trying to do something no one's ever done. You go 3 back to back to back, 3-peat NFL history.
Pittsburgh's who I keep hearing for Ayuk, but I don't know if that
Pittsburgh's sneaky.
That makes sense because they need some help. They
need
some milk.
Especially losing Deontay Johnson. Like they're going to actually makes sense too. Let me ask this before we go back into our top 3 for Carolina's training camp. If Pat Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs do this and 3-peat this season, does that make Pat Mahomes the GOAT?
No.
He'd have four NFL titles. He'd be the only quarterback to win back to back to back. He probably would have another MVP.
The only reason I say no is because there's still so much football left. And you have no idea. Like, I mean, we can all project and sit here and say, yeah, if he wins another Super Bowl this year, probably going to win maybe 2 more after this. But, I mean, if he's got 8 to 10 more years left, what did those final 8 to 10 years look like? Because we saw what Tom Brady looked like in his 30s.
What if he decided to quit, though?
Like,
so if he
around like 18 years and just be done?
Yeah, what if he was like, all right, good. All right.
That's what I'm saying. Jordan has 6 titles. Bill Russell had 11, but we've never called Bill Russell the GOAT. It was like all about moments. That's why Jordan's considered the GOAT, right?
His year to Super Bowl ratio is
insane.
Sick. It shouldn't even exist.
He's
I don't even understand.
By far the most talented quarterback I think we can all agree has ever played the game.
Yeah.
Most talented, for sure.
I will say he's the only one where I'm like, what the hell was that? Like when he in a good way, like when he does like the behind the back passes and like no look passes, like you don't do that.
Doing it too, and he's already starting to make that connection with that young rookie they got too.
Worthy, the dude that they went up for.
I seen him connecting with him online.
That might be Tyreek Hill 2.0 because he was the fast one too. Didn't he want to run the 4.2?
Yeah.
Watch out for Kansas City. All right, Panthers biggest storylines going into training camp, one from each of us. I'm debating which one I want to go to. Who wants to set this off? Because we got a couple things here. Things are better than they were last year, but there's still some open stories here that we don't have answers to yet. So I'm curious to hear from my guys in terms of what's the one thing you're really keeping an eye on as we start training camp, which starts Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
Stu, you open the lid on this thing.
Yeah, you in there.
Let me see here, man. I mean, I guess really the concern is just protection. We just got to know whether or not we can protect Bryce. And
all that money they spent, if they still can't protect this boy?
I think we will only be able, because this is how I see it, right? Off season, we've been speculating, right? The guys on paper, up front, they dogs, right? To their right. But we got to see them play together. We got to see Bryce and his, what he's been working on this offseason. Clearly, he's been in the weight room. I don't question his work ethic at all as far as what he's going to, bring to the table. But we just got to see whether or not he can be protected consistently. And if he can protect himself, by getting the ball out faster and just getting on some good chemistry lanes with his offensive line, his protection, and just the groups of receivers out there getting open, yards of separation. You know what I'm saying? I want to see that. I want to see that expand. I want to see that, be better, basically, because last year that was a problem too. Guys weren't open. So the offensive line, quarterback, and then just guys getting open, and hopefully Deontay Johnson's presence helps all that, and then obviously having Xavier Legette, out there. I'm excited to see what they do as far as dressing up things and getting him moving around in the backfield. But mainly just protection.
It wasn't just word salad. They did what they actually said. When Dave Canales came in, he said, our main priority is to get weapons for Bryce and to get protection for Bryce. And that's literally what they did. And free agency in the draft, it was all centered around Bryce to the point where they didn't really do a lot defense-wise in the draft, at least. Schuyler, what you got going for this? What's the main storyline you're looking at?
I mean, I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but when you're 2-15, there's a crap ton of options to pick from here. But I'm going to go in Stu's wheelhouse here because I think it could go cornerback. I could talk pass rushers, replacing Burns, but I want to go with the running backs because you have, 4 or 5 different options back there. And I'm just going to put this out there. Early on in his career and in his college career, I was a huge Chuba guy, and I still am a Chuba guy.
Like Chuba.
I just don't know that what we saw last year is enough for me to say he's the number one guy going into camp, into the season, and he will finish the season as number one. A lot of people just seem to think just because he stole that job from Miles Sanders a year ago, think that he's the guy. Folks, he averaged 3.8 yards per carry. That was only like 0.5 yards better than Miles Sanders behind that offensive line. It's not necessarily Chuba or Miles' fault because of that O-line, but I didn't see RB1 stuff out of Chuba, and I'm not saying that he can't be that. I just think you have so many options back there, especially when you're still paying Miles a pretty decent amount of money.
Yeah.
Let the man try and earn that job back. Let those two split the workload early on in the season while you're trying to get Jonathan Brooks back. You have Rashad Penny can handle the short yardage stuff. But I just don't know. Like, I've tried to play this scenario out many different ways, and I can't get the same answer every time as to what this thing's going to look like in terms of the division of labor at the running back spot. Like, I don't know who's going to be number 1, 2, 3, or 4. I can't figure it out.
That's a good point you bring up because we didn't really clown Miles Sanders. In fact, we were one of the few podcasts where we were like, hasn't he been hurt since like preseason? And he was kind of hurt throughout the year. So we were kind of letting people know, well, he had a hip injury or something and something else. And that stuff lingers. Once you're in season, you don't become 100% healthy again, right? Mm-hmm. Stu, like once the season starts. So we kind of knew, but we also were like, do we need Miles? Because we're paying all this money to him and Chuba's actually doing what Chuba's doing. But to Schuyler's point, Chuba didn't even break 1,000 yards last year, and he got a majority of the carries after a certain point. I'm curious to see Miles in this too. I'm curious to see all of the running backs in this behind this offensive line because it's not the same offensive line. And again, it feels like they're going into preseason with an identity. Like Stu said, if you know what your assignment is, it's a lot easier to complete it than to be told, oh, just just get out there and
make something shake, dog.
Yeah, do a little razzle dazzle. Like, you know what we do. You know how we do. Just get out there and do it.
Well, to go back to Stu's, all the different seasonings and stuff. If you go in the drawer, sometimes you don't have all those things, and you run out, and you're like, "Oh crap, what are we going to use now?" So
salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper.
So
Salt and pepper.
Last year you had Chuba, you had Miles, and you had what else? You had your salt, pepper, and you didn't have anything else really. This year you have the full cupboard. Like you have so many different options, and that's what Dave Canales has said. He's like, everywhere I've been, we've had to dig into guys on the practice squad at running back because you're going to need that many guys at running back. You're going to get banged up,
especially if you're going to run the ball like you're intending to run it. Right?
They're talking about running the ball, and I believe them. Like I believe
there's not going to be a guy that's going to have 300 carries on this roster. So just get that in your head now.
But I think they'll do like a 2-3-headed monster of running backs. I don't think it'll be like one lead back and then everybody. It won't be like a Derrick Henry situation. It'll be Chuba, Miles.
Take your turn.
Yeah, the kid we drafted, who I saw, they're keeping him. They're not rushing him back. They don't need to because they've got guys ahead of him that can carry the load. That offensive line, though, that's one of the things. For me, it kind of connects to that. It kind of have two things. One of them is a continuation of the end of last year. I want to see Bryce Young's footwork because that was what I got flamed for on Twitter at the end of the year last year. And everyone was like, oh, well, it's the offensive line, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, it's actually coaching. They're not coaching him to do this. He's just literally leisurely taking a step or two back and then tossing it into the secondary someplace if he gets the ball out and from pressure or whatever. And from what I saw in Blueprint, that was one of the things Dave Canales was hitting on first. Like, we got to get your footwork right before we can get, you getting the ball out 2.7 seconds and knowing the route. Like, everything starts with your feet and your hips. Like, we got to get all that together. And to see Dave Canales and Bryce working on that and seeing Bryce actually climbing the pocket, like doing the ladder and everything.
It does look better.
It looks better.
We saw a very small glimpse of it, and who knows what we'll see because it's going to change whenever you get guys actually diving around your feet. But when we were back in spring, like it just looked much better, looked more crisp, more clean. I mean, Stu, you were there right there with it too. I'm sure you saw it just as well.
Yeah. I can tell you this. When it comes to offseason, what people do need to realize is when you get players like Bryce that, I say some people say love the grind, right? Love the journey. I like to say respect the grind, respect the journey, right? Respect the fact that you have to go to practice and you have to perfect your craft. Bryce Young is a guy that I think he sees this opportunity, this off season, and he says, "Oh, I get to go get better today," and I feel like he's done that. He seems like that type of guy, and when you're getting paid to lead a team the way he's being paid and in the position that he's in, this whole footwork thing, if he's being taught something, best believe we're gonna see that come to fruition. I look at Josh Allen, right?
Yeah.
Josh Allen from one year to the next, when they were like, hey, work on this and work on that.
Totally
Different.
Yeah.
Right. And so these are professionals. These guys have the ability to learn probably faster than any average person. If at the end of the day, like the coachability at this level is outstanding. And that's one of the things that he tested well on, right? So
tested the highest, not all
tested high.
Yeah,
and he seems like he has the right coach to get him there.
See,
I know I'm over here getting people riled up and excited.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are.
But just go ahead, man. Like, and I think what we should be excited about is that I don't think we should go into the season. I'm putting my Schuyler Callihan hat on right now.
Here we go.
And say to ourselves, oh, this is about to be like the turnaround of the century, right? If it is, great. But I think where we come with this offseason, we have a better understanding of what offseason is supposed to feel like. Because when you don't know you don't really understand what's going on. You don't understand what it used to feel like. You know what I'm saying? And people are kind of like, you just get weary, right? You get anxious. When you don't know what you're doing, you get anxious. And so I feel like we've been in this pattern, this cycle for so long. And finally you get somebody in leadership that can actually say, hey, we're going to do things this way, and this is what we're looking for. And so now we can all sit back and say, oh, well, that looks like exactly what he said he was looking for. So I guess we'll wait and see, just like he has to wait and see. And if it doesn't pan out, then it doesn't pan out. We're not all up in arms. And we just understand that, hey, this is year one of Dan Morgan and Dave Canellis. Go to year two. And then we start stacking the years and stacking the players and stacking the culture, stacking, our expectations. Right now, our expectations are let's win more than 2 games.
Yeah. But I will say this, though, about me being the fan on the panel here. I will say this. When Carolina has gotten good, it didn't take very long. When the coach came in, it took about a year or so. And that second year was when you kind of knew whether or not they were going to be here or not. Well, and I'm talking Ron Rivera. Now, Ron took a little bit longer. I think it was year 3 that we got into, and you guys started like 0-2 or something like that, and then you routed off like 10 straight wins or something like that, finished 12-4, won the division. Before him, John Fox, same way. We were picking number 2 in the draft when John Fox came in as head coach, drafted Julius Peppers.
Who'd they draft
later when the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Smith was in that draft too. I think Jordan Gross was in that draft too. That might be one of the best drafts we've had.
That is a class, yo.
So the draft class set it up. So Fox is the same way. And then even the very beginning, Dom Capers, way back. We were in the playoffs, went into the NFC Championship game against Green Bay in '96. Like the team started in '95. So it's like it don't take long in the NFL to turn it around. The Rams just recently, when they won their Super Bowl,
with Sean
they were bottom of the barrel a couple years before he got there. He turned it around like literally after.
All they needed was a quarterback situation.
Yeah. Which is funny now because Jared Goff's actually one of my favorite quarterbacks now, just up in Detroit. He just got overvalued, I guess, in LA or something. I don't know. But
the one thing I keep kind of getting teased with is kind of the whole Jacksonville turnaround. And the more I think about it does kind of line up. Like Trevor Lawrence went through a chaotic rookie season with the whole Urban Meyer fiasco. I mean, it was a bad product. Bryce Young went with, maybe not to that extent, but it was at least on the field just as ugly. And they kind of got they got Doug Peterson in there. They found what they needed to do. They took that next step. They're still waiting to really kind of ascend, but it feels like they're about to be there. And I think that's kind of the same timeline you can see the Panthers on. Like this year, take that step. Like Stu said, win 5-6 games this year. And even though at the end of the day you're not going to be happy, you look back on it and you think, well, shoot, we just doubled, tripled our win total from a year ago. That's way more progress than you would have thought. Next year, you get the competitive football, and then you can start competing.
The best case scenarios that we're sitting here at this point next year talking about how Bryce Young might become the first $500 million quarterback, because it's lining up for him in his class. It's going to be somebody out of that class that ends up getting that. And
CJ,
pick. Yeah, CJ's got the lead right now. I kind of need to see CJ season 2 because I think the league.
Yeah. We can't start talking elite until it's done multiple years.
Yeah, you got to do it one more year, brother.
Can you imagine
just one?
The first, when we're sitting here talking on this in 20 years, the first $1 billion quarterback.
Pat Mahomes. It's gonna be
Patrick Mahomes still gonna be playing.
He's gonna take a pay cut.
He's gonna have 11 Super Bowls by then.
He'll take a cut to get it to him, but that's what he did to get to the 400 and whatever million he signed recently. And your boy, I didn't realize until watching Blueprint, Brant Tillis put that contract together because he was the Kansas City cap guy. Now he's here in Carolina. See what I mean? Like they're doing things. It's crazy for me to see them do things the right way, and that's sad because this is my team. And for me to be like, wow, they're actually
normal.
That makes sense. Hey, they drafted a guy.
Figuring out how to move that money around, like.
He knows how to move the money around.
He knows how to move the money around.
That's why I'm like, Bryce Young might be the first $500 million quarterback if everything works out. Like, say he comes out and has a CJ Stroud type of, he's in MVP talks when we get to the end of the regular season.
I really think that Bryce really appreciates you speaking that into existence.
Needs to hire me. Put me on his
Says you
PR.
might need to check your heart rate now.
Willie Smith, super fan for Bleav Panther, says Frank Wright's spices and condiments were vanilla and mayonnaise. He didn't try any spices, and he did say it was pretty vanilla. My big takeaway going to training camp. Schuyler, maybe you can help answer this question. Who is cornerback number 2 for this team? Because that's not the right one. Tater Dog Wilson says, is Gilmore coming to Carolina? Right. I'm sitting there trying to think who's going to be starting on the other side of J.C. Horn at cornerback, because it was Dante Jackson, but now he's not here. Who is it supposed to be?
Now, right now, it's going to be Dane Jackson, guy that comes from Buffalo. He has some starting experience, mainly a reserve, but I don't know. Like they're bringing in some guys to work out now, and I've said it all off season. I mean, they have the first they're number 1 in the pecking order for waivers, so they're going to be looking at corners, pass rushers, stuff like that. So I think they're really going to pursue the waiver wire hard in terms of corner and pass rusher. And I don't care who it is, you've got to bring somebody else in, whether it's through waivers or you get to the end of roster cuts and you bring somebody else in, or maybe it is maybe not Stephon Gilmore, but another free agent veteran that's out there. There's not very many left, but you got to have somebody with starting experience to compete with Dane Jackson. Again, Dane's kind of been a 50-50 guy starting and being a rotational guy. If JC has the injury issues pop up again, now Dane Jackson's your number 1, and your number 2 is fill in the blank. DiCaprio Bootle, Deshaun Jameson.
Who?
So exactly. So this is why you need a third guy for insurance. It's not just to help compete with Dane Jackson, but it's insurance in case, God forbid, something happens again with J.C. Horn.
Do you want Stephon Gilmore? Do you guys want him back?
Selfishly, I think, it would be great. But I think for him, it doesn't make a lot of sense because you're getting towards the end of your career. You want to go win a Super Bowl. And I get he could come here and take the hometown discount, but why would you do that when you can go win a Super Bowl and make more money?
Don't go to the Cowboys. That's what he's trying to do.
According to Jeremy Fowler here, Jerry Jacobs was to visit the Panthers. Jerry Jacobs played for the Detroit Lions last year. Starting 29 of 40 appearances in 2024, coming off of this 2024 campaign.
That seems to be the hold to me.
Career high 744 appearances while starting 12 of 15 games. He finished the year with 55 tackles, 8 passes defended, and 3 interceptions.
Okay, you're talking me into it a little bit. I'm just worried because it's like this is a passing league, and even Canales on Blueprint during the draft, he was like, just sitting there watching all these cornerbacks go off the board. Like they knew in the back of their head, like it was in between the first and second, I think, where they were like, should we do something? They just waited and let the board come to them, and they missed out on all these cornerbacks that left.
That's the hardest thing about it is like you get to the dog days of summer and you're looking at the roster and you're like, goodness gracious, like they need another corner. They need another pass rusher. But when you come from the situation that Dan inherited, you can't fix all that with one bandage in one offseason. Like this is going to be a multi-year process.
Yeah, because you can still develop the young guys on that roster to be somebody.
True. They do have Troy Hill
on the roster there and ball out.
And maybe this is the year. Hopefully, this is the year that J.C. Horn actually is available more often than not, and actually flourishes into what we think he might be, which could be potentially a top 5 cornerback in the league. When he's out there, he feels like a number 1 like cornerback. It's just a matter of keeping him out there. So that was my thing. Cornerback seems like out of all the positions that they've attacked this offseason, cornerback seems like they've kind of just been like, let's just see what we got.
You got bigger issues. Technically, I mean, you had to fix the O-line. You spent $154 million on patching up that interior. And to me, that's way worth more than anything you could have done at corner.
That's true. And then they had to address, I mean, they lost Brian Burns. They lost Frankie Louvu. They lost key guys in the front 7. They play
Moneyball, though, remember?
They did play Moneyball. And I think they did a good job. I'm curious, too, about Jadeveon Clowney and how much he can actually give at this part of his career. Because if he can give us 7-8 sacks, you know what I mean? That's yes.
And one of the things too is on offense, you can actually create a defensive strategy. If you go out there and run the ball really well and hit these play actions like you're supposed to, you're running the clock out and you're scoring. If you run the clock out and you score, you put the defense in a less stressful situation, right? Because now your opponent's offense has to figure out how to basically get deep. You know what I'm saying? You can't just necessarily go under routes and crossing routes all the way down the field because you're running out of time.
That's
right?
what Jim Tressel used to do when he was back at Youngstown State. Like, he knew he didn't have the talent to beat some of the teams he was playing, but he would suffocate the hell out of teams by running the football and not giving it back to them. It would irritate the crap out of other teams. That's how he would win games.
See it in high school a lot where they can't throw, but they got a huge offensive line. Yeah.
Look at how the Seahawks were when they were the Legion of
That's
Boom.
a good point. Yeah.
Like, they were basically like Russell Wilson they were running the ball and they was play action. And Russell Wilson was getting that ball out. And if he wasn't getting the ball out, he was getting up out of there.
I couldn't stand Russell. 3rd and 15. 3rd and 15. Russell Wilson. If it's 3rd, he's gonna connect. He's going to convert it, and it's gonna take 15 seconds for that play to develop.
And the teams that when you stop them from running the ball, that's where teams can get ahead, right? I look at how we played them in the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't stop our run game, and we stopped theirs early on. So we got the bigger jump.
Mm-hmm.
And then, lo and behold, they start coming back in the 3rd, 4th quarter.
Oh, you talking about the playoff game?
Yeah, playoff game.
Man, y'all about gave me a stroke in that game. I'm like, I'm up here. And I'm like,
but I just think once this team really understands the identity, like the defense will understand it and the offense will understand it. And it just goes back to that saying that I had earlier. It was like the common understanding. Everybody going into work every day, understanding who's who, what they do best, and how we're going to win these games.
High school is more fun when you show up and you know everybody as opposed to being the new kid. And you got to make all those relationships from scratch all of a sudden. If you were watching on Instagram has an hour limit, so it cut that off. I figured out what was up with the Twitter premium. I don't have time to do it for this episode, but we'll have it together by the time we come back for the next episode. And I'll tell you guys. Yeah, well, yeah. But I know he still got me, but I've still got to give him some money. But we'll figure out all that. So we'll have it back on the Twitter, on the Bleav in Panthers Twitter account the next time we're back on. I think I'm trying to, you guys, you've been on vacations and stuff. I have not gone anywhere like all summer yet. We kind of pushed it towards the end of it in August before all my high school football and all that stuff starts back up again mid-August. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be here first week of August. I don't know where I'm going, but I'm definitely not going to be home. So we're definitely going somewhere. And I may come down to Charlotte for Panthers training camp in August. And I want to get coordinated with y'all so we can actually see each other and maybe do something down there. Even if we do an episode and I'm sitting in a hotel room, it'd be after I'd been at training camp that day or whatever. Last year left a bad taste in my mouth in terms of not being able to see anything. The only thing I got was a sub for my efforts for dropping down. It was a damn good sub. Shout out to Monster Subs in Spartanburg.
That should have been a sign of the things to come last year.
It really should have. Looking back on it, like that was the Jets joint.
So what we should do is, though, we should go to 1058 to get some wings at Thomas Davis spot. Yeah.
Oh, say less. You ain't got.
Yeah, nice little plug for Thomas Davis and his family.
We didn't see
1058. We're gonna be there during training camp.
Let us do a little something while we're there, because we could easily. I can bring all my stuff and set it up, and we can do an audio episode of pod while we're there in there. Maybe get TD on if he's in the building. So we'll see, but it's all up in the air. Training camp starts Wednesday. Players start to arrive tomorrow, even though it's
move-in day.
It's a practice facility, right? They're at the practice facility.
Yeah, they're at the practice facility.
They're at the stadium. Yeah.
How does so they're at BOA. So how does this work? How does this work in terms of, because that's a smaller area than Wofford, right? So is it first come, first serve? Because I know the tickets are free.
There was an allotment. I can't remember the exact amount. Maybe Stu, maybe not. Maybe like 2,000.
It was like 2,000 or something like that. Yeah.
So apparently and I don't know because I haven't been down there since OTAs and minicamp, but they were doing a whole bunch of construction while we were there. And I think they finished it all. And I think there's even bleachers now. And I think there's like bleachers. An actual space for fans to like go and get a drink or whatever. Like, So if that's the case, it's really changed in the last month and a half. So I'm interested.
Yeah,
to
they
see
got
what comes out.
bleachers right there at the entrance where the bubble used to be.
I got to plan this out then, because I do think I'm going to try to go down because I'm an hour away from Charlotte in Kernersville, towards Greensboro, Winston High Point area in the Triad. So it don't take but like 45 minutes to an hour for me to get down there. But I'd probably stay and drive back in the morning like I did before. Spartanburg was another hour or 45 minutes or so on the other side of Charlotte, I think it was. So it was a little bit of a longer drive. But yeah, to Stu's point, I probably should have thought about that whole experience going into the season as a precursor to what was going to happen in the season.
No bad juju.
No bad juju. I'm feeling good. I know you guys are starting to feel better than we did at the end of season 4. Dave Canals is in the house. Dan Morgan's driving the bus. Bryce Young looks bigger, looks a little more confident. He's never going to be the guy that talks you into a victory. He's not the rah-rah talk guy, but he leads by action. And I'm curious to see how he handles this with the franchise actually still believing in him and giving him the weapons he needs. This is Bryce Young season. Like it's got to happen because if he can't do it this season with what they put around him and the O-line and everything else, this conversation is going to be a lot different for us at this point next year, I think, because David Tepper and Nicole Tepper don't strike me as being very patient. So I don't know if they're not to this extent, like letting them go 5 years and then not getting anything out of it. And we restart all over again at quarterback.
I think
Bryce will be fine.
I think this year, no matter what happens this year, this has got to be a start over year for him, because last year you basically dumped him in chicken grease.
Yeah.
So
something about chicken today. What is going on with chicken today? Something about fried chicken today.
Yeah, man. Some hot sauce.
Well, I think we're gonna stop it right there because we ran a little bit over. Follow us on Twitter at our own personal handles, and of course at Bleav in Panthers on X, whatever the kids call it these days. Yeah, just whatever. Follow us there. You'll get the latest on when the next shows are. It'll be kind of herky-jerky as we're in training camp and figuring everything out. We'll be back on our regular Tuesday schedule once the season begins, so you'll be able to catch us there. Again, I'll get the Twitter situation straightened out by the time we're back on, and you'll be able to watch us there on Twitter, as well as our Instagram, our Facebook, all that other stuff there. So you'll be able to catch all that there. The audio for this episode will be up a little bit later on today on the Bleav Podcast Network channel. Anything else you guys got before we get out of here for today?
Go golf.
Good to be back.
Please, U.S. men's Olympic team, don't embarrass us. Like, embarrass them. Like, that's what you're there for. You're supposed to be out there embarrassing people, and you're out here just holding on. Holding on against South Sudan. Like, if the elders can see y'all right now, like if Jordan and Pippen and them are paying attention and they're watching this.
Shout out to South Sudan for showing up.
They showed up and showed out. Like that would have been the biggest upset in international basketball history if South Sudan had beat them. They were leading the whole game. Like, what are we doing, USA? Shout out to LeBron James. He's going to be a flat
JT Thor's upsetting the USA national team.
JT, I thought you would like that because I'm like, Schuyler knows a little bit about JT Thor. Like, he's trying to write an article or two about him. And this dude out here leading South Sudan to an upset win over the Americans. What's going on? So, I don't know. Olympics are starting this week. I think the opening ceremonies are Friday, and then we'll start getting into their games and stuff. So these games actually count. So we'll see how all that does. We'll probably talk a little bit about that too when we get back in. Shout out to everybody that stopped in today for this opening salvo season 5 premiere. Again, follow us to find out for the next one, probably next week. But for Schuyler Callihan, for Jonathan Stewart, this is Desmond Johnson. You've been watching and listening to the Bleav in Carolina Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Keep on it.